good finish for Liverpool. Big result for them. Alexis McAllister's goal, the difference between the two sides. And Liverpool, well, lots of questions to ask about them. Same could be said for Real Madrid as well. Let's welcome in our panel for this evening. We have Jurgen Klinsmann with us and Stewart Robson as well. I must start with you though, Stevie. Is this the best Liverpool we've seen this season?
Listen, you couldn't have dreamt, if you were anybody connected with Liverpool today, you couldn't have dreamt the way they played. I mean, quite frankly, they outplayed Real Madrid for the majority of the game. Little spells where Real Madrid had some possession, but this was all about Liverpool going forward. You know, we've been talking about who's to blame for Liverpool's poor performances. Is it the players? Is it the manager? Well, today, everybody gets the praise because the players absolutely turned up tonight. Defensively, they were great. The middle of the park, they were fantastic. That three of McAllister, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai were outstanding. Szoboszlai in the first half was absolute world class. And Arne Slot, in my opinion, got this absolutely 100% right because nobody expected him to play Wirtz. I certainly didn't. And I guess because of the Real Madrid setup, because they had nothing down that right-hand side, Liverpool's left, and so he could play Wirtz. And Wirtz was allowed to drift. And he just got in positions and he knitted everything together. Him and Szoboszlai passing and moving. It was dreamsville for Liverpool in this game. To pick, of all games, to produce your best performance of the season at home to Real Madrid, big-time game. And boy, did they deserve it. 1-0 it finished, it should have been 3 or 4.
What did you make of Liverpool tonight, Robbo?
They played well after the first 20 minutes, I would say. There was a little period in the game where Real Madrid had a bit of possession, but they didn't really create anything with that possession. And you thought that maybe Liverpool were frightened of the game. They were dropping deeper. They were going to try and play on the counter-attack. But as soon as they had the penalty disallowed, it changed the game completely. Suddenly they were on the front foot, they were winning balls in midfield, they were breaking quickly, they were getting balls into the box, they were winning headers, they were winning every 50-50 challenge, they defended well. So after that first 20-25 minutes, when I think they were a little bit worried about the game and what Real Madrid had, after that, they were the better team, there's no doubt about it. And when you saw the highlights there, it just summed it up. Lots of highlights, not much going on for Real Madrid.
A deserved win for Liverpool for you, Jurgen?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they had a majority of the chances. Real Madrid looked a little bit flat, you know, and I thought it was a fantastic performance by Liverpool at the right time. Now, obviously, they had a bit of a bumpy road over the last couple of weeks. A lot of question marks, you know, in Liverpool, but this was a fantastic response, you know, for players and for the coach. Obviously, was enjoyable to watch. And I was obviously very pleased that he played Florian Wirtz. Stevie said he didn't expect him to play. And and I think the kid showed up. You know, he did fantastic kind of sequences within the game. He didn't score, obviously, but he's growing. You know, he's a young kid. And I think, you know, going forward, you know, he will grow with every game. Also, the games where he maybe didn't play so well. And I think there will be a lot to be seen by Florian Wirtz in the near future.
What was wrong with Real Madrid tonight, Ale?
Well, where do we start? Let me start with the manager and the personnel decision that he made. In having Camavinga sort of playing up high on the right-hand side, at least for the first half, that was never going to work. I don't know how Xabi Alonso and his staff get together and say, you know, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Camavinga, who's naturally a left-sided player or naturally a left-footed player, and who's not an attacking player naturally, is not what he does best. We're going to put him high, wide, and right. That limits what Real Madrid could do down the right-hand side. And I think Stevie just mentioned and alluded to the fact that given the fact that Real Madrid was so limited down the right-hand side, it's almost as if they were playing on one half of the field. Yeah, if you look at the field vertically, it's like they were playing like this, tilted to the left. Everything was going towards Vini. Everything was going towards Mbappe coming from the left-hand side. Everything was coming perhaps from Bellingham. There was no presence on that right-hand side. And so Camavinga wasn't giving you any sort of width, wasn't giving you any sort of depth, wasn't giving you anything on the right. And so then he started drifting inside, which then just left that left-hand side all open for Liverpool, I should say. That's on the tactical part, and I don't understand how that made sense in Xabi Alonso's head. I see what's happening, and I go, well, I just don't see the same picture, and I don't see the reasoning either. But he did it. Liverpool took advantage of it. Beyond that, if Real Madrid are going to go into Anfield and win a game, then you need to have a presence in the midfield that's strong enough to match up with guys like Szoboszlai, who was excellent, to match up with guys like Florian Wirtz, who was excellent, to match up with guys like McAllister, who scored a goal and was controlling the game alongside Szoboszlai. Real Madrid, without any sort of structure in the midfield, got exposed, which then means that the service into Mbappe gets cut out. He gets impatient and starts drifting everywhere except down the middle, where he has been most successful this season. And then Vini on the left-hand side, who should be a game changer for you, was not today, was largely ineffective, and was controlled very well by Conor Bradley. Other than that, Real Madrid was great today.
As soon as Liverpool scored the goal, actually, Mbappe, you could see him thinking, you know what, I've had enough of this. I'm going to come back to the halfway line and get the ball, and then I'm going to try and beat 10 people. I mean, it was kind of schoolboyish to watch him, because he just had enough of no service, no ball, nothing, running around, not getting close to anybody, just invisible. Actually, pretty much like most of the Real Madrid side.
Robbo, it was put to Xabi Alonso after the game that they were outplayed by Liverpool, and he said he didn't think so. He thought that they competed well in this game.
Well, they competed, but not very well. And going back to Ali's point, one of the reasons that he had to play Camavinga out on the right-hand side is because he doesn't trust Bellingham as a central midfield player. If you play Rodrigo out on the right-hand side and Vinny Jr. out on the left-hand side and Mbappe up front, then you have two central midfielders or three central midfielders, and one of them has to be Bellingham. But because he doesn't want to run back and he doesn't want to get around the pitch as much as he should do, and he wants to be a number 10, somehow Xabi Alonso tried to fit him in the team. And that just backfired against him. So they didn't compete well enough. And as the boys said, Mbappe wanted to go here, there and everywhere except in between the two centre-halves where he can be most threatening. And Vinny Jr. was completely outplayed by Conor Bradley. You know, they just weren't good enough tonight.
Did Xabi Alonso get it wrong tonight, Jurgen?
Well, his challenge is really to get the players in their best spots. You know, if you have so many superstars in your team and you're getting forced to put them on the field, you kind of make some sacrifices in certain positions. And Camavinga, obviously, as you rightfully say, he's not a right winger. He's lost out there. And if you have Bellingham in the middle, then you need to have somebody covering his back basically when he goes forward. And so, but you have these big names and you have to put them on the field. Now, to put them together on the field all in the right position is very difficult, because we know that Mbappe loves to come from the left wing, going into the middle, drifting into the middle. Same with Vinicius Jr. And so he will throughout the entire year, he will have these issues, these problems, you know, to get his superstars in their best positions where they can excel. On the other hand, also when you have forward players like he has, then you need some cover. You need people that, you know, protect your back four, your back line. Otherwise, you're too open, and this is exactly what happened today. You know, their right side then became an area for Liverpool to attack. Wirtz took advantage of it. Other players took advantage of it, and then you struggle. So this is something that Xabi Alonso will have to figure out over the next couple of months.
I'm sitting here with three guys who have been managers at one point or another, and what I don't understand is that if you're game planning and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, Camavinga over there somehow makes sense. If you somehow get past that idea and think, yeah, that makes sense, and you see how the game is going, why is there no in-game adjustment and saying, look, we're going to need a fourth midfielder, as Stewie just mentioned. Okay, well, then we're going to tuck Camavinga in here, and we're going to play with four in the middle, and we'll play with two strikers. And Mbappe, you get a little bit more central, and Vinny, you kind of run around Kylian. Sometimes you go on the left, sometimes you go on the right, maybe underneath, run beyond Kylian. How is that not a possibility for Real Madrid? And how is this not something that a manager at this level is unable to see that, okay, if you're hell-bent on having four midfielders because you think you need that protection, why don't you just tuck him in? Why do you still have him out there for 45 minutes, for 60 minutes out there on the right-hand side when you're getting exposed time and time again? That lack of in-game adjustment, I understand having to fit in big names on the field. Well, you can fit in the big names on the field and still be structurally sound. They were not today.
So before I go back to Stevie with Liverpool, just another question for you, LA. We've now seen 3 big games this season under Xabi Alonso for Real Madrid. They lost big time in El Derby against Atleti. They won El Clasico against Barcelona, and they've lost here at Anfield to Liverpool. What can we take away from Xabi Alonso in these big games so far this season?
Well, part of it I just spoke about. And I think it goes back to his time at Bayer Leverkusen, his last season at Bayer Leverkusen, and some of the decisions that he made at Bayer Leverkusen in Champions League. In which in games that truly matter, that were a knockout stage against Bayern Munich, for example, making the goalkeeping decision in terms of who started and who didn't start, who started up top, or not playing with a striker, sort of overthinking stuff and tinkering. And I find that if you want to get the best out of Real Madrid, first of all, you have to find structure and organization. And once you put that forth to this team, then consistency. No, clarity of thought. This is your role. There's too much in this team in which they're allowed and given the freedom to just, hey, you go here, you go there, you read the game here, you read the game there. And that's all fine and well, as long as you know what your reset positions are when you start to defend. And what I see from this team is, yeah, Jude Bellingham takes off, makes the run, but there is nobody covering him if he goes. If Kylian Mbappe drifts, nobody appears in the middle. If you want a good example of that, I'll give you an example. Trent Alexander-Arnold comes on the field. What is he going to do when he gets in an advanced position? He's going to swing the ball in. Kylian Mbappe decided to come to the top of the 18-yard box instead of being the center forward. And that's what I'm talking about, that the reset positions are not there. If Kylian Mbappe drops off, then somebody's got to go inside the 18-yard box. That doesn't happen. And it happens regularly, defensively and offensively. That is a lack of structure organization that I don't think this team has, and they're very clear about. And it's something that some people have said, well, this is what Xabi Alonso has brought to this team. Maybe. In these big games that we're talking about, not so much.
How does the coach transmit that to the team, Jurgen?
Well, especially on that level, I mean, at Real Madrid, I mean, it's a very difficult task for the manager. Now, is that now exactly the team that he wanted from the beginning on? Is it that team that he takes over from the previous season? Does he now need to figure out where everybody has his favorite places to play and can excel the best possible? So you try to put the puzzle together in the way that, okay, if I play Mbappe here, then I need to cover him up on the other side from another player. So who does the dirty work for the big shots up front? So you have to work on that puzzle continuously, and maybe you realize after a couple of months into that process that, okay, you know what, I can play maybe with 3 forward players, Vinicius Junior, Mbappe, and maybe even Rodrigo, or but then I need to have specific other players that cover them. They are there for them, and also you need to have your star players defend as well, dropping back after losing the balls, and maybe coming, as Alejandro said, you need to have the structure, you need to have the shape to work together. So this is a huge task for Xabi Alonso because it's a different approach than he had in Leverkusen. In Leverkusen, he could basically step by step put the players in their preferred positions, but he chose those players. He knew exactly where they had their strengths and weaknesses, and so he could cover them up, whatever weaknesses they had. So now he takes over such a superstar team, Galacticos, with all their goods when they go forward and maybe score plenty of goals, but also with their bads when they go, and maybe don't want to all defend, at certain moments. They don't want to run back 50, 60 yards after losing the ball, maybe in the case of Bellingham, for example. So this will be not an easy task for Xabi, but, it's Real Madrid.
Yeah, so as for Liverpool, obviously they beat Villa. Now they've beaten Real Madrid. Next up is Manchester City away. How do they ensure it's this version of Liverpool that we saw tonight against Real Madrid, against Man City?
Well, I think what you've seen over the last couple of games in particular is the fog has disappeared. They started the season by winning games somehow, and then they lost, 5 out of 6? And everybody was running around overthinking everything, taking too long to make passes. Everybody's so concerned with trying to figure out what's going on that they forgot to play football. You know, the ability they have on the field, they need to try and relax, and they couldn't relax. And that performance against Villa was the first step to relaxing. And I think you saw a team that was relaxed tonight. You know, we've not seen Liverpool with a movement like that since last season. You know, and Wirtz was a huge part of that. He unlocked a lot of space for other players. And so I think they've just come out the fog. And I think they'll be relishing going to Man City. You know, from 2 weeks ago thinking, wow, we got Villa at home, we got Real Madrid at home, then we got City away. Now it's, well, we've taken care of Villa. We've absolutely outplayed Real Madrid. Let's go and do the same with Man City.
It's relaxed, but with emotion. It's relaxed, but with intensity. And we saw that, some of it against Aston Villa, and we actually talked about over the weekend that you were seeing the emotional edge coming back for Liverpool, and the reaction of the players when they're making a challenge, the reaction of the players when they're winning a 50-50 ball, whenever they're doing a play that is not just about completing a pass, that it's about building momentum and building character and building self-belief and building confidence that you haven't had over the course of the season. Now, that confidence comes from the fact that you're winning games. They did that against Aston Villa, and I think what would fill this team with confidence after Real Madrid is not only did they beat Real Madrid playing the game, not only did they beat them in the score, they were also emotionally invested in the game, in which they were all over Real Madrid and did not allow this team to breathe. That, I think, elevates you. What they have to be careful with is that you take a breather, and that breather becomes complacency. You cannot afford to do that if you're Liverpool. You have to carry this momentum forward and know that a lot of your success has come from that urgency, from that intensity, from that emotion that was lacking for about a month, I would say in the middle part of the season, as we have come to see. Earlier, they were winning games. Then later, they were sort of scraping by, and then they couldn't get results. Now it seems like they have turned around, continue this momentum, and it has to be based with that emotion and that intensity. Do
you think they have come out of the fog, as Stevie said, Robbo? Is this them turning a corner?
I hope it is. It looked as though it is over the last couple of games. And just going back to what the guys are saying, you relax and you make good decisions with the ball, and then the fire intensity comes when you haven't got the ball. You can't relax when you haven't got the ball. And that's exactly what they did tonight. When they made good decisions on the ball, they were at times relaxed on the ball, they made good decisions, they made the right pass. And then when they lost it, that intensity came back, that fire came back, that determination, the speed across the field came back, and they outrun and outplayed Real Madrid. So that's got to keep going. And they've got to remember how they did it tonight, take it into the next game against Man City.
Just to end here, were you surprised he brought Trent Alexander-Arnold on, Xabi Alonso?
Couldn't believe it. Absolutely shocked. You know, the only thing, I'm sure I wasn't the only one, but the only thing I thought would happen if you brought Trent on was the crowd would start getting on top of him, which then builds the whole stadium. The crowd then get into it because they can't wait to have a go at Trent, which translates onto the field that gives Liverpool a lift as well. Because at that stage, you're 1-0 up, you're not going to take too many chances, you're going to try and keep a hold of what you have. So Real Madrid had some possession at that stage, but it actually helped Liverpool, in my opinion, because it gave them something. They wanted to make sure that Trent Alexander wasn't walking off this field with an assist, a goal or anything, and the crowd made sure that he wasn't going to get any help from them either. So I think Xabi, he made a mistake bringing Trent Alexander on. I think all it did was help Liverpool. It certainly didn't help Real Madrid, in my opinion.
Real Madrid will be back in action in La Liga next to try and bounce back from this loss to Liverpool. Obviously, you can see La Liga right here on ESPN Plus and see how they fare away to Rayo Vallecano on Sunday.